Addiction Voices of Hope, heard here on WNPQ 95.9 The Light. Addiction Voices of Hope is presented by Malone University and Quest Recovery and Prevention Services. If you would like to be a sponsor, please go to my website and email me at addictionvoicesofhope.com. And don't forget to like us on Facebook. Today my guests are Terrie and Dale Batdorff. Hi guys.
How you doing?
Now, Dale, you kind of play a dual role here. You have solace, and let me just back this up. I'm going to back this up. You lost a son to heroin, is that correct?
Yes, we lost our son Dustin, who was 21 years old, in September of 2011.
2011, so we're getting up there, close to it. Tell us a little bit about Dustin.
Dustin was your typical all-American kid. Grew up in our home, and just like any other young man. Unfortunately, he made some bad decisions and took some prescription medicines from a friend of his, and they shared it, and he became addicted to opiates, and he quickly changed over to heroin, and he died from a heroin overdose at home in his bedroom on a Saturday night, Sunday morning, and the day before he was supposed to start rehab.
He was supposed to go into rehab that next day.
Yep, supposed to start rehab on Monday. So he chose to take, what addicts call the last ride, and I'm very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. What was, I hate to do this, but what is your memory? I mean, I hate to bring you back, but it does help our listeners, especially those that are addicted, if they can feel what you're feeling, just a small little piece. I mean, we'll never know what you're feeling.
I can tell you on that Sunday morning, I saw his car in the driveway, and I thought he was going to be late for work, so I went downstairs to where his bedroom was, heard the music, saw the light under the door, and I just had a sense come over me that something's wrong or something. I don't know what's going on. I burst in, and I found Dustin laying on the floor. There was a puddle of vomit around him. His face was blue. When I got down and looked at him, I could see his nostrils were plugged up with vomit, and rigor mortis had set in. His arms were drawn up, and I just started screaming. And I was doing CPR and trying to claw that out of his nose. I just thought, I really knew he was dead, but I just had to do something. And I just thought, maybe, there's some slight chance that I might be able to, do something for him. But anyhow, it was just horrible. I tried to call 911 and the reception wasn't coming in. I called Dale. He was at Bob Evans eating breakfast like he does on Sundays. And I was so shocked, I can't even tell you. I just couldn't believe it. I was screaming at God and just saying, no, and I was saying, what the have you done? And I just, it was just horrible. Nobody should have to find one of their kids that way. No. It's just awful.
No. And how are you both coping? I mean, there is no words to express the loss of a child. My mom lost my little sister, and 7 years ago, and she's still not well. How are you coping with this?
Well, I can tell you this, that statement that you just made, that losing a child is undescribable. That just basically kind of glosses over it. It's like blowing on a mirror, or like a window, for what the effect it has. There's not a day or an hour that goes by that I don't think of my son, and what potential he had and what he could have done. And then you get the guilt as a parent. Did I do everything that I could do to keep him alive and a part of this earth? And so it's something that is just constantly in the back of your mind. The thing that drives me and keeps me going forward is my faith in Jesus Christ, knowing that I will see my son again in a very short amount of time. When you look at the amount of time you spend on this earth and the time you spend in eternity, I know it's just a very short amount of time before I see him again.
That's a nice thought. That's a nice way to kind of cope with that. You have other children?
Yes, I have my oldest son is Anthony, and he's 31, and then daughter Brooke, she's 30, and then Dustin was 21. He would have been 24 if he would have survived, and then our youngest son is 21 now.
He's 22.
Or 22.
Well, that's all right. I've been telling everybody I'm turning 48 on
I
Monday,
seen
and
that.
I'm actually 47. I'm turning.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I gave myself an extra year for some reason. I don't know.
oh.
But
Well, I was also going to say one strategy. It's taken me about 3 years to let the guilt thing go. Like, what could I have done different? I wish I would have known more. He come to me for help. I let him down. I had to finally come to terms with that, but I can only think of it, take one day at a time, because if I think of living my whole life without Dustin here, it overwhelms me,
Mhm.
and I can't deal with it.
Mhm.
So it's just one day at a time.
Yeah.
But it's hard because I think of him a lot.
I was-
Because he was the funny one. He was always taking pranks and joking around, and it really is. There's a big hole without him there. There's a big hole in our lives because he was just a character, wasn't he, Dale?
Yeah.
He really was.
He was really,
Yeah.
he was
He
just a
was-
very unique young man, and had always been from day one. You know, it was only about 21 months between he and his younger brother, and they grew up together. And it's one thing that when I speak at the schools, I really emphasize that anywhere that you've seen Dustin or you'd see Nick,
Mhm.
you know, they were real close. And
How is he doing?
out of our family, I think Nick, he does what he can, and but it's hit him pretty hard because he and Dustin were very, very close.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked up to his brother a lot, and everybody knew him as Dustin's little brother.
Okay.
And so he had to kind of like find his own identity after Dustin died, and you know, he's by himself, and you know, their siblings are older,
Mhm.
and so but he's doing good. You know.
And he was, a couple of things. One thing that just broke my heart is he would say, "Mom, I don't know who I am," after Dustin died. But he seems better now. But he says, "I'm the only child that you and Dad have together." And I said, "Well, Nick, your older brother and sister are the same way. We had those 2 children by previous marriages." So I said, "You're really in the same boat as them." But he was so used to him and his brother,
Mm.
you know, and that's kind of sad when he said he didn't know who he was. But he's doing better.
Mhm.
He's doing a lot better. So,
Yeah, time has a way of healing it.
you know, my daughter Brooke, Dustin was her favorite brother, so she had a very hard time dealing with it. I would say she's doing better now too. But she blamed us. She said, "Oh, you guys should have had him in counseling. Oh, this." There was a lot of things we went through that she just wasn't aware of because she lived out of state at the
Okay.
time. And she blamed us for a lot of things, which really was bad because we already had the guilt
Mhm.
on us. And then she blamed herself. She said if she would have been home or here watching over him, maybe it wouldn't have happened. So it's just hard on the other kids, really hard on the other kids. So they keep us going though, right,
Yeah.
Dale?
You know, it would have been very easy, Michelle, for us to, on that Sunday morning, to just basically go in our bedroom and slam the door and say that's it.
Mhm.
But immediately upon his death, we're holding each other, and Terry's saying, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I said, you know, we're going to get through this because we both have faith in our Lord. We both have a very strong family. Plus, we knew that our kids, our children, were going to watch and react to the way that we reacted.
Mhm.
And which really was a good thing because it forced us to take the next step.
Wow. When we come back, we're going to talk about what you do in the schools because you had mentioned earlier that you go out to schools. If you have a question for Dale or Terry, please give me a call at 330-492-6881, and we'll be right back. Thanks.
Will you listen to that?
In Voices of Hope, I am your host, Michelle Beyer, here on WNPQ 95.9 The Light. When we left, we were talking to Terrie and Dale Batdorff, and they were talking about their son, Justin, who had overdosed on heroin in 2011. And they were telling us how they were coping and how their family is coping. And Dale had mentioned one of the ways I believe you're coping is you go out to schools.
That's correct.
Do you have a program? Tell us about your program, what you're doing.
I'll tell you, it's Dustin.
What did I say?
Justin.
Did I say Justin?
But you know, a lot of people do that. A lot of people do
Sorry.
that, so that's okay. It actually, the program started, I'm going to give you kind of a timeline to give you an idea. We created a video, and that video was created and played at his memorial. And it just showed, it's a 15-minute video. And it showed a young man coming up. It was made out of all the cassettes that we had from our life, you know, with Dustin. And we put it together, and it just shows just a typical young man coming up through life and so on and so forth. And we were approached by Jackie Pollard of the Stark County Mental Health to use that video to open up these programs that they called town hall meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And they had them, they started like in November of 2011 and carried through, and there was like 8 or 9, 10 of them or so, and they were at different communities. And we were grieving, and so we never went to any. The first one we went to was in May of 2012 at Malone College. It was one of the largest ones. And when we walked in there, everybody knew who we were, you know, as far as the people that were putting on the video and stuff. But after that played and after the presentation, we were approached by Carl Busnick. He's a high school athletic sports coach, health teacher for Canton South High School.
Okay.
Wanted to know if I'd be interested in coming out and speaking to a class. And at that point, it kind of like, you know, kind of took off from there. Took the video, we changed it up a little bit, added a drug message at the very end. And also then went to Jackson Township, the police department, and said, you know, my wife, who's a nurse, called in, and on this particular day, and no one's ever heard the 911 call. I want to see if that could be beneficial for a presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave it to me, and I went out and sat in my truck, and I played it, and it was just, it is just so raw, and there's just so much emotion, and you hear, you know, Terry pleading with God, and you know, it adds 5 minutes to the overall video, but it really is so dramatic that it just really brings the, you know, because you're like a fly on the wall, and you're there listening to her response as she finds her son, and you know, so we adapted that to the video, and Canton South was the first time we ever presented it.
Okay.
So it basically opens up the programs that I do, and I have been to almost all of the schools in our area. And then some of them I've been to twice and 3 times because they find it very, very, very beneficial for their students. The last one was at Massillon High School.
Okay. What kind of response are you getting from the students?
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's almost the same. It doesn't matter if I do it at McKinley, Canton South. I do it for the day reporting, which is a felony reporting thing. Everybody that you see in this room are convicted felons. And I don't care if you're old, young, male, female, you have the same response. It's the same response. And generally what happens is I'll set the video up and maybe 3 to 5 minutes, tell a little bit about it. Video starts out, plays 15 minutes, and then it rolls right into the 911 call. So now you're in a blackened auditorium, and all that you see is the video's closed out, and now you have this text up on a black screen, and it sets the stage. It says it's Sunday, you know, September 25th, his mom, and so on and so forth. And then just like every other police presentation that you ever see, you hear the tones of the 911 call. And then you hear my wife, and then it just goes from there. And it's like it's like a novel, and it's building up to a certain point to where she leaves the room, she comes back, and you know at that point that there's no hope. She has just now worked on him as a nurse, you know, for the last several minutes, done CPR, chest compressions, and you hear all of this. You hear the noise, her breathing into him, and all of this. And you're in a blackened auditorium, and your mind is just open, and you're taking it all in, and then you realize he's dead. And then the lights come up in the auditorium, and I always enter from the rear, and it's just dead silence. in which you'll hear some sniffling, some crying, and then I
Yeah.
deliver my message.
I sat through that one time, and one time was all I could sit through this. And how you can do this now? Do you go with Dale?
I have, but he usually goes by himself. I just finished school, so a lot of times I would be in class or something, but we don't listen to the 911. When I go to him, we go down the hall,
Okay.
and we don't listen to it. It's just,
That
it's too
can't be.
intense.
Yeah, that can't be.
No, I can't do that. I have to be as far away from that as possible for me to maintain my composure
Mm-hmm.
and be able to deliver my message. You know, I need, and I pray a lot out in the hall prior to, and I ask God to use me as His vessel and to
Mhm.
say the things that I need to say to get the word across. And the ironic part is, the response is always the same. You know, a lot of the students will come down and they'll form a line. It's almost like a receiving line, like a, you know, like
Mhm.
a cemetery, or you know what I'm saying.
Right.
And they'll all come up and a lot of hugging and a lot of tears, and you know, they say, I'm sorry for your loss, and then they share with me, my mom's an addict, or my father
Mhm.
died from heroin, or my sister's dead, or this or that. And here's these young people, and they're just telling you these traumatic stories, and it just breaks your heart. And
It does break your heart, and I don't know if I could be as strong as the two of you. When we come back, we're going to talk about the support group that they were involved in, Solace. Is that correct?
Solace
Because I hear it pronounced a couple different ways. So when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Terrie and Dale Batdorff. If you have a phone call, if you'd like to make a phone call or have a question for them, please give us a call at 330-492-6881. We'll be right back. To Addiction Voices of Hope. I am your host, Michelle Beyer, here on WNPQ 95.9 The Light. When we left, we were talking to Terrie and Dale Batdorff, who lost their son, Dustin, to heroin a couple of years ago. And one of the things that they've done is they've put a video together, and they go out to schools, and they are sending a message. What message are you trying to get to these kids?
The most predominant message I try to deliver is, don't go down the road, because the odds are so against you. And
Mhm.
it's like, you take heroin one time, 50%, you're going to be addicted. And if you take it twice, your odds are at 75%. And once you become addicted, it's like such a hard road to come back from. That I state, you know, that they did a long-term study that they found, you know, 75% of the addicts were dead, you know, in a short amount of time. I mean, those odds are they're not getting any better.
No.
So I really encourage them, you know, don't make a bad decision. And don't even open up that book and go down that way.
And do you both go to this support group that are you in charge of the
Yes,
Stark County?
I'm the director of Solace of Stark County.
Okay.
And the way that came out to be is, after I delivered my message at Canton South, we had our first organizational meeting at the Stark County Mental Health and Recovery. I was approached by them and said, you know, the timing's perfect. It was originally started out in Southern Ohio, and they were looking to have a chapter opened up in Stark County. So, you know, Jackie Ballard and Paula, the past director, approached me about it, and we became the faces of the drug problem. And I've always been somewhat of a control freak, and if I'm going to be involved in something, I'm going to be involved with it on the leadership side of it. And so, you know, we took it right from the get-go, and have some other board members, you know, Fran Irving, and the board members come and go. We right now we're looking for some more members and board members and whatever. But we always meet on the third Monday of every month at the Perry Exploration Center, which is the Perry branch of the public library. Beautiful facility there. We're off in the summer because of family vacations and commitments and so on, but our next meeting will be in September. I think September the 15th is when we'll start back up again.
How could they find out more information about Solace?
Easiest way to go about Solace is to go to Facebook, Solace of Stark County. We update that every day. We put a lot of information on that. It's interactive. You can put your comments in on there if you have situations with a loved one, if you want to post a story, prayer request. Just, there's a lot of different things that you can do with that.
Okay. Do
So,
you contact? I remember hearing one time that a family member lost their son, and you contacted them. Is that happening a lot, where you are contacting, or they're contacting you?
you know, the people that come to the meeting, we open it up to people that have lost someone to drug addiction, suicide. If you have someone in prison, you know, we're a support group, that type of direction. And what we do is we have members that have all lost a child, and we have a young lady that writes our condolence cards, which is a new program that we just kind of started out, and we get notified because of our support group when someone dies of an overdose, and we get that person's name and next to kin and so on, and we reach out to them in a form of a condolence card, say, hey, you're not alone, that there is this group here, we know the pain you're going through because we've all experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
Come and be among friends. And you know, in the first 6 months, 9 months after you lost someone, they're pretty much in their own little world, in their shell, and they can't come out. But maybe a year after the death, we start seeing people coming out, and they like to share about their, you know, son or daughter. You know, the story's the same. The story's always the same. The name's different, and it just breaks your heart.
Mm-hmm.
See these beautiful kids, and but you find out there's no age restriction. There's nothing. It's like, you know, you get reports of a 55-year-old guy dying that fought addiction for 20 years.
Right. It does not have a face. It doesn't care. It doesn't discriminate. Addiction is addiction, and you're not immune to it. And heroin is, at this moment, one of the worst, you know, epidemics going on right now.
There's not a day you can't turn on the news and have some type of media coverage on the heroin epidemic nationwide.
What do you hope to see? Do you have a dream? Do you have something you are aspiring to do here?
You know, it's the thing that we encountered as soon as Dustin came to us and said he needed help.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't find help, and it was because of the epidemic. You know, there's not enough beds, and there's not enough, you know, recovery out there, and so it's like, you know, we want to see something. So that's improved. That has improved, and again, it's improved because of our son's death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, policies were changed because of that. You know, it used to be that you would go in and they wouldn't give you any type of thing to get you through, and now you can, within 24 to 48 hours, you can have something to help you through the cravings and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more recovery areas now, and it's being addressed more openly. And
I just wanted to interject. When I took Dustin the Friday before that he passed away, I took him to a pain clinic where they were going to give him Suboxone. They took his vitals and everything, and I asked them that day, I go, could he please have something? He has to go through the whole weekend. And they said no, he has to wait until Monday because we have to monitor it and adjust the dosage. And I just can't help but think if he would have had something that day, and I would have given him something, they would have given me the med, and I would have given him something the next 2 days, it might have made the difference. Because that drug occupies the receptor sites, so even if they do take an opiate, they don't get the high, you know, they don't get that high from the opiate. So, you know, that's a hard pill to swallow. I mean, it really is.
Well, I'm sorry. That's all the time we have for today. Terrie and Dale, thank you so much for sharing this horrifying story. And it is, you're right. They're all different, but they're the same. Everybody has the same story, just different faces put to it. If you would like to know more about Solace, you can go to my website at addictionvoicesofhope.com. If you would also like to tell your story, because telling your story does help other people, also sign up on my website, addictionvoicesofhope.com. This has been Michelle Beyer for Addiction Voices of Hope, WNPQ 95.9 The Light. Tomorrow's guest is Mr. Fry, Mr. James Fry, and he's going to tell you his story on how he is in his recovery. Have a great day. Please be blessed and love yourself. Bye-bye.